We'll get started in just a few minutes. Okay, so those of you wait, we'll get started in a couple of minutes. I've just got somebody who's just come on the line here, our presenter, and so I'm just going to check hers as well. Anna, good morning. Are you there?
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Did you have any more luck with your downloading, or weren't able to?
No.
Okay. All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and start. We've already checked in with David, so he's all set as well. So we'll get started in a few minutes. For those of you, I see questions are already starting to come in, so I'm not going to. I tried to answer what I could before we got started. I'm going to kind of focus on this now, so we will be getting to questions after we do the presentation. And just to give you a heads up, we've allotted 2 hours for this. We found in the past our presentation itself will probably take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. So we'll have over an hour to take the questions. And it may seem like a long time, but it does go by pretty quickly. So that's kind of what the plan is. I do have a question about this being recorded. Yes, it is going to be recorded. It also, in addition to being here on WebEx, we do have it up on our Facebook Live page and also on our YouTube page. So the recordings will be there on both Facebook and YouTube. So if you don't know how to find that, when you go to our homepage, cslb.ca.gov, just at the very top, you see the little icons for the different social media, and you'll be able to see them there. Okay, David Delatorre, if you're also listening in, if you go ahead and bring your camera up, and Anna too, and we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build free online workshop for those who want to get the California Contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the different parts of the license application and to give you practical tips on how you can complete it correctly to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California Contractor's license. We'll also help you get ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a brand new video that we produced on what you can expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, that is the government agency responsible for regulating California's construction industry. I am Rick Lopes. I am joined this morning by...
Good morning. Hi, Rick. Good morning, David.
And we're also joined at the beginning of our workshop by David De La Torre. This past month, Mr. De La Torre took over as a one-year term as our board chair. In case you didn't know, CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. The board is made up of 10 public members, including one labor representative, one local building official, one representative from a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 licensed contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature. Now, Mr. De La Torre, who's from San Bruno on the San Francisco Peninsula, is an assembly appointee. He's been on our board since May of 2015. His daytime job is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Labor Union, Local 261, and they represent about 5,000 members in San Francisco, San Mateo, and Marin counties. Mr. De La Torre is a third-generation laborer who has worked in a variety of local and regional contractors. He also serves as the board president for the San Francisco chapter of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, where he also serves as a national board member, and in 2018 he served as the state president. Mr. De La Torre is also a representative on San Francisco's 100% Renewable Energy Task Force, and he's here this morning to help welcome you to this morning's workshop. So I'll turn it over now to David.
Thank you, Rick. As you said, my name is David De La Torre. I'm the current chair of the Contractor State Licensing Board. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity and welcome you to today's Get Licensed to Build workshop. I also want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about the process of getting your California contractor's license. Our pre-workshop survey found that roughly 95% of you joining us today are looking to get your contractor's license, and about 5% are looking to add a classification. The construction industry is full of opportunities for those of you that are willing to get into the weeds to capture work. That means going out, networking with those already established in the industry, and building relationships with other licensed contractors and developers. The ongoing housing shortage has opened up endless opportunities for our general contractors, as have remodeling projects. On a larger scale, our engineering contractors that build our skyscrapers have managed to maintain busy throughout this pandemic, keeping the public and first responders safe by improving the freeways, roads, streets, and bridges we travel on. Or you can focus in a single specialty, like an electrician, plumber, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, landscaper, painter, or solar installation, just to name a few. From there, your entire future will open up and enable you to live your California dream. It doesn't matter if you want to be a one-person operation where you self-perform the work, have a small group of employees, or grow a large company. It's up to you. Getting your contractor's license may seem like a daunting task, but I'm confident that if you know what you're doing, possess the experience you need to qualify, you'll be able to demonstrate that to us and get your license. In today's workshop, Rick and Anna are going to do their best to help you understand what you need to know to get your license. You'll also want to spend some time getting familiar with the CSLB website to be able to navigate through it. Check out the study guides and other information that will assist you in succeeding in this great industry. With that, I wish you all the best of luck as you begin this exciting new chapter in your careers. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. Appreciate you joining us. Okay, so what we're going to do is Ann and I, we're going to let you focus on the presentation. So we're going to turn off our cameras. We'll turn them back on later when we get into our Q&As. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So please note, after a 3-month closure due to the COVID-19 health emergency, 7 of CSLB's 8 test centers have reopened, and it's been about 6 weeks now that we've been reopened. And we're working as quickly as we can to get through a backlog of exams that built up during the closure. Last week alone, we administered more than 1,000 exams. And one of the things that's making it tough, though, and keep this in mind as you move through the process, is that on any given day, 10 and 20% of our applicants fail to show up to take their test. So as you move through the process, be sure that you're good when you set up your test date. Write it down, put it on your calendar, don't blow it off. Not only is it going to delay you getting your license, but it's also going to delay another applicant trying to get their license because you've taken the seat. And also keep in mind, too, that when you do get a test seat, if you want to try to get it done faster, since we do have openings, there's a chance you could walk in and show up and maybe be able to get a seat. So think about that if you're trying to get your exam done faster than what you're able to get a test date. You may just decide to maybe show up at one of our test centers that morning, and on the outside chance that we do have open seats, we'd be happy to sit you and let you take your exam early. So if you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and you want to participate, you need to move over to WebEx and join us there. To do that, just go to the banner that's at the top of the CSLB homepage. It's cslb.ca.gov. Click the register button. You'll go give us your information, and then you'll be able to join in on WebEx. And you're also going to be able to download that presentation to follow along. The link is right there as well. So you can do that. You can watch it now, go back, download it later if you'd like. There's also clickable bonus links that we've got on the presentation that you'll see, and we'll kind of point them out. That expands on information that we're going to be able to cover here this morning. So if you just want to watch the presentation, don't want to do anything else, that's cool too. Either you can do it right here on WebEx or on YouTube or Facebook. You'll be able to see everything that people will see in other places as well.
So we're going to be throwing a lot of information at you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We're going to be archiving this video of this workshop, and we're going to put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it as many times as you need to. To ask a question, you want to use the Q&A feature. You should see the blue circle with a question mark at the bottom of your screen when you mouse over it. Clicking on the circle should open up a Q&A window where you can type your question. Make sure you're sending your questions to all panelists. We tend to get a lot of questions during the workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or military services. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you can hold off to actually sending us those questions until the very end to see if part of the workshop answers the questions you may have. We will go through all of your questions at the end of the presentation.
Now, the information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. While the webcast does contain general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines are communicated or discussed during the webcast or for informational purposes only. If you've got questions about the application of the law in specific situations, you should contact an attorney who's familiar with California construction law, or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher LexisNexis. And as you can see on the bottom of the screen, the bonus links, you have the links for both of those to either see it for free or to purchase it. The links are there in the presentation.
Here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to take you through the process for applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Why you want to get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, the type of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. We'll spend a lot of time giving you tips to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualification. We're going to be discussing fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for the exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like a bond and insurance.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it now. Let's get started. First, who needs a license? Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects that are priced at $500 or more. And that total includes both labor and materials. Now, the law does not let you break it down into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours of the job total more than $500, that's when you need to have a contractor's license. Okay, so what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's 7026.1. We have a link to that code here on the page. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part that we've underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company, and this is the important part, who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. So in other words, you don't have to actually do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction or home improvement work, or even give a bid for a construction or home improvement job if the bid totals more than $500.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and you're serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with a fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine and potential administrative fines anywhere in between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
Okay, so what do you need to do to get your license? The first and most important thing to understand is that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies, and they're also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but just you need to know and understand that every company, even a one-person operation, has to have a qualifier, someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. So in many one-person operations, that qualifier is also the person. So that's how that works. Now here's a short list of the minimum qualifications that you'll need. First, you must be at least 18 years old. Next, you must have either a valid Social Security number or a valid individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN. You qualify your license in two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years as a journeyperson, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade that's being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We'll spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in just a few minutes. Now, in some cases, a college education, a bachelor's or an associate's degree may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. If you have a 4-year degree in a construction-related field, for example, a number of state universities offer a construction management program. Having that type of degree may give you a maximum of 3 years of educational credit in lieu of the work experience. In this situation, you would have to have an additional 12 months of field experience to meet the minimum 4 years of work experience requirement within the last 10 years. And there's also some business classes you can take that may help you earn up to 2 years of education, but it's very topic specific. And we recommend that you call into our licensing information center to discuss your specific class with a supervisor before you submit the application. Or you can also send an email to them at licensing@cslb.ca.gov. It's licensing@cslb.ca.gov. And we'll repeat that a couple more times at least throughout the presentation. Now, completing an apprenticeship program may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Some of your military service may count as well. And towards the bottom of the page on the screen, you can see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. Now, the license qualifier must also pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on the California business law. The other is on the specific trade covered by the license. And we also have limited specialty licenses, which we'll talk about later. For those people, those are our D licenses. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam.
As we mentioned, the qualifier must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time here on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams if you meet a very specific situation. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
Okay, the next thing you're going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business is going to be. There are 4 different types, and we'll quickly go through them. The first is the sole ownership, and that's where the owner or the responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. About 64%, so almost 2/3 of our contractors in California are sole ownerships, and this is where many people start, and they may move later on down the line to either a corporation or maybe a LLC. The second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. About 1/3, 32% of our licensees right now in California are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. That's only about 2% of our licensees. And finally is a limited liability company, or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as a qualifier. Only about 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classification list at the bottom of the screen. First is a Class A, or a general engineering contractor. These are the contractors who deal with the fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Our next class is the B, or general building contractor. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires, as part of its construction, at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is our C, or specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include the C10 electrical contractors, our C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscaping contractors, C33 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and C53 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
A couple things to note there before we move on. I have a typo on there. The actual plumbing contractor is actually a C36, not a C33. So my apologies for that. So a C33 is a painting contractor. One thing I also just want to reemphasize that Anna covered there is when you originally are applying for your license, you can only apply for one classification. So pick the one that is your most experienced or the one best suited to pass the test with. Do that. Then after that, you can add classifications on because you'll need to take additional tests. So right off the bat, you can only apply for one license classification at a time, and then you can add classifications afterwards. Okay, so here are the two forms that you're going to need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There's a bonus link at the bottom of the page that you see for that. And we'll give you a closer look at the sections. We'll break this down, and then we'll actually show where it goes on the application as we move through this presentation. Okay, so let's go ahead and start breaking down the steps of the application process. First thing you're going to want to do is to identify who is going to be the qualifier for your license. So if you're using an RME, that's a responsible managing employee as your qualifier, you need to determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. We talked about that a little bit ago. Next, make sure that you complete the correct application. There's two options. If they don't qualify for a waiver, you want to use the first one, which is the application for the original contractor's license. If they can qualify for the exam waiver, you're going to want to use the other option, which is the application for the original contractor license examination waiver. And 7065 is the business and profession code that applies to that. The next step is determining your company name. Take a look at the application. We have a lot of examples on that, but some things to keep in mind is your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you're getting. So for example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you can't have the name of John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall. It goes well beyond what a plumber can do. Now the corporate LLC names must match exactly the name that you've got registered with the California Secretary of State's office. Also, names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. That's again, if you're a corporation or an LLC.
Next, you'll want to get together your certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 year of experience qualification. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread any misinformation. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exam. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for your criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and also all home improvement salespersons. Now, if you're in California, you must submit your fingerprints electronically with what's called LiveScan. You can get an updated list of LiveScan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for LiveScan. You also see that we have a link at the bottom of the page to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. Now, if you are out of state, it's going to be a little bit tougher for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you have to actually submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. And those, unfortunately, can take anywhere between 3 months and 6 months for the FBI and the Department of Justice to process. So when things settle down a little more with the COVID-19, you actually, if you're out of state, you might want to consider traveling to California because then you can get it done with LiveScan here.
So what happens if you do have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crime, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2013. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back 3 years of the application date, so 2017. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications that we receive based on criminal convictions.
All right. Our next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on the application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years of experience within the past 10 years in that classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since the year 2010. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreperson supervising employee, a contractor, or an owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision or one that's completed an apprenticeship program.
So there's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience. Feel free to use as many additional pages as needed. Simply attach them to the end of the work experience form. That's not a problem. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person who is certifying your work describes the actual work that you perform and the dates in which you performed those duties. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. You want to make sure you do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. We're just giving you an example so you have an idea of what we're looking for.
Okay, so at the top of the chart, this is the way it's going to get spelled out for you. The first thing is you're going to see it's the classification, and then type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is for journey person experience. Now, the overall theme that we're going to keep repeating through this is the more specific the description, the better. Note that the work experience form should be completed by your certifier. That is somebody who has the knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person can, but does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work. We want to look something like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something that would be unacceptable would be something generic like this. Residential general building trades. So as you can see, we need more specifics. For a four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job sites performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something like this, something generic, residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something generic like residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of the state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and the employment circumstances. Our next example that we're going to be taking a look at is for the C27 landscaping contractor. First, for the experience at a journey person level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be, Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. So again, be very specific. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a four-person would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at job sites performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be, as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something generic like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for the general building contractors would be relevant here. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work as well as for the military, work done on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances. Now, by law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of all of the applications that we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation that you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting document should not be mailed in with your application. You're only going to want to send this if CSLB asks you to send this in. On the lower right of your screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. So if you look at the chart here, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting experience if you were self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you're applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirement. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication if needed. On this next slide, here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available to you now, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are selected and are asked to provide this information in the future. Remember, the goal is that you are trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. And again, you don't want to send this information in with your application. You're only going to send this in if you are requested by CSLB staff. CSLB staff may also contact the certifier of experience and other parties to verify this experience.
Okay, a couple things to note here. That was a lot of information. So if you haven't downloaded the presentation yet, you may want to do that either now or after we're finished. Go to our website, cslb.ca.gov. Up at the top of the page, you'll see a green banner. On it, an option in this workshop is to download the presentation. So all the information you're seeing on the screen is in that, as well as the bonus links. You'll be able to link straight to that. And one other note, that CSLB does get more than 1,000 applications a month. So our application processing staff has seen it all. And 2 pieces of advice here. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. We've shown it to them. They know what's coming. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content that you'll need to fill out the application. But before getting it to CSLB, double check to make sure you didn't miss anything. Be sure to sign it and date it as well. You'd be surprised at how many people forget to do that. It just delays the process. Also, don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. $330. You'll pay the $200 initial license fee, which will cover your first 2 years of your license after you pass your exam or exams. Then we'll put your application packet in the mail. That's when you'll do that, and then or hand deliver it to one of us at our public counters around the state. And we've got bonus link there at the bottom. That's where you can find our office locations.
Okay, so now that we've actually gone through the information that you'll need to include, here's going to be a closer look at the actual application so you can see where this information goes. So right now we're looking at section 1 of the application. Section 1 is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, you're going to want to make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and also the entity that you are applying for. We don't want it to be misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section here matches exactly what you have provided with the Secretary of State. In line 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. Next is Section 2. Section 2 is where you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. So you must go to the Secretary of State, register it first, and then use the number here in this section here. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. Next is Section 3. In this section, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and also is going to be responsible for the direct supervision and control of the construction operations. The qualifier is also the person who will be taking the examinations. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you're going to be the only person listed on the license, you're going to list 100% on this line. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity that you have selected. You can find more information about this on pages 2 through 4 of our application instructions. Line number 8 is where you're going to sign and date your application before mailing it in. Section 4 is where you're going to list the personnel information for all of the remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, your president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you're going to want to make additional copies of this page here and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you'll want to make sure that all personnel that you have registered and listed with the Secretary of State is also included in this section. So if you need to make more copies, please do so. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in this section here, Section 4. Next is Section 5. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover that information here. Parts of the application, Section 6, is where you're going to, we're going to talk about qualifier education, apprenticeship, and military experience. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts sent to you. Then you're going to want to include it in your application packet when you send in your application. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB because it's going to be a nightmare to try to match it up with your application. So make sure they send them to you and you send them in with your application. You don't want to take a chance that it's going to not be able to be matched up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to the education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in another language other than English, it must be translated before you mail it in with your application. Okay. Next is the parts of the application is our certification of work experience. We're going to be discussing how to fill out this certificate. Part 1 will be filled out by you. Here you will list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained your experience, please make sure to check the box in line number 2. If you're applying for a B General Construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own project, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier that you choose must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you were working part-time, you'll only receive 50% credit for that time, which means that you're actually going to have to provide proof of 8 years of experience within the last 10 years so that you can meet that 4 years experience requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical duties for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet, which is available on our website. Again, we don't want you to copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers to be critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certificate is also to be completed by the certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date their certification. Okay, now we're going to talk about our owner builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for a B General Building license, a construction license, and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. Now, the experience has to be verifiable through building permits or final inspections or other documentation. So you will need to list the building permit number on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project itself. Next, question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades did they perform. Remember, the information that you include in this information here, in this section here, needs to be as complete and accurate as possible.
All right. A lot of information Anna just covered there. A good time to remind you that this is being recorded. So if you missed something on this, don't worry about it. You're able to go back. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. You can rewatch in case you missed anything. Again, you can also download the presentation on our website at cslb.ca.gov, the banner up at the top of the page. Try to do that today. We'll keep the banner up for a few hours, but there's no telling how long we're going to be able to keep that thing up. Also, Anna did refer to some things about the application instructions. Note that when you actually, in the application package, and we've got links in this presentation to the actual packet, there's a lot of instructions that go into depth in some of these areas. So you heard Anna making references to page 2 of the application instructions. That's where you're going to find it. The application package is something like 12 pages long. So there's a lot of it that's instructions. So that'll help you along as well. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How can you check on the status of the application? For that, here's 2 resources. First, there's a secured check. You'll need your application file number and a contractor PIN number to get your update. We'll send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website on the date that we received a paperwork for a specific process. So what you want to do is you want to look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown there is after the date that we likely received your paperwork, then it's very likely that we're busy working on your application. If you sent your application in after that date, chances are they have not begun the processing. Now, there's a good chance you're going to see, well, my check's already been cashed. When something comes in, the first thing that happens is it goes to cashiering, the check is pulled out, it goes to a whole different unit. They just focus on cashing the checks that come in. Next, it has to be scanned into our system. And so that takes time, and then processes. You can imagine getting the 1,000+ applications every month. It takes a little bit of time for them to get to process those. So that's how you're going to be able to tell. As you can imagine, we do receive hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we do process them in the order that they are received. So be sure to take the extra time to get the application right so you don't have to send it. We don't have to send it back to you, and then you have to send it back to us, and we have to begin the processing process again. Okay, so when your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. With our test centers now reopened, we've added an additional session in the late afternoon and early evening to help us catch up on the backlog that we accumulated over the 3 months that we were closed. Now, we do have 8 test centers around California. We would encourage you to take the exam at the closest center to you. They are here in alphabetical order. Berkeley, which is actually right now the only one that's still closed, but the Berkeley test center is closed. The other offices are test centers are in Fresno, Norwalk, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, and San Jose. Now, if you're an applicant whose first language is not English and you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow the use of a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the exam questions. Now, question 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. Don't wait till the last minute to do this. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam to our test center and then have somebody that you want to translate the exam for you. They have to be pre-approved in advance. Also, we've got study guides available for each of our exams. Now, included in each study guide, you'll find a list of sections and the topics covered by the exam. They also include some sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources you can use to help you prepare for the exam. The study guides are available also online on our website, and there's a bonus link there on the bottom of the screen for you to get to those. Now, when you get an exam date, please be sure that you don't miss it. We talked about that a little earlier. If you do fail to appear for your exam, you're going to have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. Now, that fee may be waived once with documented evidence if there's a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control.
We do have some COVID-19 procedures in place for the test centers. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam and give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your examination for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video, what to expect on test day, that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen. You'll take your exam on a touch-screen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time that you get to complete your examination. You'll get your results at the end of your examination. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions that you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the examination. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within an 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee.
Okay, so after you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you will need at this point to pay the $200 for your initial license fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you'll have. And you'll need to get the required insurance policies. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance, so be sure to check our website for the amounts. Please note that your insurance company or broker can actually submit your insurance information directly to CSLB on our website. And if you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption form, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and a plastic license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. You want to carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to be soliciting business, talking to potential customers, or signing contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, if a license is issued today, August 7th, 2020, it will expire on August 31st, 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need to so that you don't forget it. The CSLB, we do send out a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to make sure to renew your license on time.
Okay, here's a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Now, you'll notice that Anna just mentioned it's sent to the address of record that we have on file. So if you're not there anymore, you're not going to get it, and there's a chance your license may expire. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, be sure to notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier. Could not be more critical that you get us qualifier information. Your license will be suspended if you do not have a qualifier in place. All right, that is the presentation. So now we're going to turn to your questions. We'll turn our cameras back on so you can see us. And we're going to go through. We must have done a really good job because right now we've only got 30-something questions. We've got a little over 200 people online with us. So if there's something we haven't covered with there, we're going to start going through the questions one by one. But to be honest with you, not a ton of questions that will come in right now. So if you do have a question and you want to go ahead and get that to us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the line. Sorry, the microphone is I'm blaring through here. So we're just going to, let me get down to the first question and we're going to go through this here. And okay, we're going to start, just so you know, Anna, we're going to start with a question here we got at 9:55 from Joseph. I'm planning to take C7 and my work experience of more than 10 years is outside the US. So we did talk about it a little bit. Anna, can you go over again how you'd be able to certify your work experience if you got it out of the country?
Sure. So it doesn't matter where you obtained your experience, even if it was out of the country, we would give you credit, but somebody needs to fill out that certificate of work experience. So we would need somebody that has knowledge that you have at least journeyman level experience, even if it's outside of the country, that is willing to fill out your certificate form. Again, we're looking for 4 years of experience within the last 10 years.
Okay, the next question is, are exams still going on despite COVID-19? I had to postpone mine since I'm out of state and can't fly into California. Yeah, we are. We've got 7 of our 8 test centers are open. So if you do need to reschedule that, get in touch with us if the travel is not something doable. We are testing. Obviously, that can change at any time depending on the situation. We will publicize it. There is the banner at the top of our homepage where we have all of our COVID-19. So I would say if you're ever wondering if there's any changes, just to, check there fairly often. Also, I'd encourage you can sign up for email alerts. If we do need to shut down our test centers again, we'll definitely notify our different mass email lists. So be sure to sign up to get emails from CSLB, and we'll let you know when if that changes at all. Okay, next one is, can a 4-year degree of electrical engineering from university earn 2 years as qualifying experience? Anna.
Again, it's not necessarily on a year-to-year basis. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to send in your transcript along with your application. And then once we can see your transcript, we will let you know how much experience you're going to be getting for your education. There's not a way where we can tell you ahead of time how much experience I'll be giving you.
Okay, next one is, does a single property owner need a license to act as a general contractor on their own residential property?
No, not for your own. If it's your own project, your own property, you do not need a contractor.
Okay, next question, what kind of license do I need to do handyman work? We'll go over this again. The license kicks in at a job that totals $500 or more in materials and labor. So if you're doing a small job, somebody wants you to install a ceiling fan or something that may cost $100 or a couple $100, you do not need a license at all to do those small jobs. Those are handyman exemptions. The warning though is don't take installing 10 ceiling fans, which would be $1,000 or $1,500, and break them into 3 different jobs of installing 3 fans and one to do 4 fans a piece. Don't break the job down, because if you do get caught, the law does not give you any leeway on that. It looks at the cost of the total job. So don't look to break it down into pieces. Don't look to break it down into an hourly charge. I'll install these at $50 an hour. Well, if it's going to take you 30 hours to do it, that takes you over the $500 limit. So you don't need it if the work's going to be less than $500. And $500, that's where it kicks in. Okay, next one is for the application classification requested, would I list C61 or the specific D classification? Just so you know, is our C61 is what's called our limited specialty, then all the Ds fall under that. So Anna, how best to classify if you want a C61D limited specialty license?
Sure. You're going to want to do C61 / and then the D specialty that you're going after.
Great. Okay, here's the next one. A scenario. The husband has 23 years of painting. The first 6 years were training, learning, then 6 to 10 years supervising, and the last 13 have been a head foreman. How would you go about, obviously the last 13 would be the one we'd be interested in because we can only look back a total of 10 years. So Anna, how best, I know you talked about it a little bit in the presentation about the foreman experience.
Absolutely. So what we're looking for is 4 years of experience within the last 10, as long as you have somebody who's willing to fill out your work experience certification form and have them be very detailed on what types of duties you performed, what types of duties you oversaw. That's the starting point. That's how you want to begin. You want to fill out your application, fill out the work certificate, have somebody certify that experience, and we will definitely take a look at it.
Next question talks about the first step in starting a business. Well, we covered a lot of those things. First,
I think those two went together, Rick.
Oh, did I skip over? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
So that's the first step.
Oh, the first step is start. Okay, I'll move on to the next one then. Okay, I'm applying for licenses as sole ownership, but I have not registered. Do I need to register with the Secretary of State? Now, sole ownership is, you don't have to register. Corporations and LLCs are what have to be registered with the Secretary of State. So if you're going to apply as a sole owner, and I think I mentioned about 2/3 of our licensees are sole owners, you do not have to be registered with the Secretary of State's office, but that's your call. There's lots of other pluses and minuses to being a sole owner as compared to a corporation. You kind of have to figure that one out on your own and get some advice from an attorney if you need to. But if you are going to apply as a sole ownership, you do not need to register first with the Secretary of State. The one thing you keep in mind is you do need to get a business license as well, no matter what kind of entity you are. Okay, next one is, I had a question. I'm sorry for the interruption. It's okay. I own a mechanical engineering company for over 15 years and want to expand into general contracting. If I obtain a general contractor on my team, may I use him as an RME for the experience? And I know you touched on this a little bit. If you can just go back over RMEs and also the percentage ownerships, how they have to have that in the company.
Sure. So you're going to let us know whoever has the experience, that person is going to be the qualifier. You'll let us know if it's an RME, that's a responsible managing employee. The caveat with that is that he can't be listed as a contractor. So I'm not sure if he already has a contractor's license. If so, he will have to inactivate his own license to be your RME. Yes, you can absolutely use him as an RME and have him, both him and yourself on the license. It's not a problem.
Great. Next one is, our company does material handling, design, and installation of conveyors. We have a B1 license in the state of Arizona, and question if we should apply for a California General Contractor B license or just go for a specialty C61 pump conveyor license. California B license would cover multiple specialties. I'll just mention that we do have reciprocity agreements with, I think it's 4 different states. We've got Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and I believe Louisiana are the 4 states. So what that means is if you happen to already be licensed in one of those states, there's a chance you may be able to waive the trade exam. You would still have to take the California business law exam, but you may be able to waive that. So we do have a reciprocity page on our website. If you are in that scenario, just go to the website, go in the search bar, type in reciprocity, and you'll get that information. Anna, do you want to handle the rest of it?
Sure. So what we would recommend is that you access our classification. We have a classification booklet that you can access on our website. And what it does, it gives you a description of the work that you can do with every classification that we have at CSLB. So you'll want to read the description and see if that's something that that clarifies that question for you. Look at what type of work you're going to be doing. If in the event that after reading that description you still have some questions, we do have a classification deputy, somebody who is able to provide more information that you can send an email to. We will provide you that email. It is classifications with an S, classifications at CSLB.org. outofstate.ca.gov. And what you do, you're going to want to send that person an email, and they will respond with an email. We do ask that you give them at least 3 weeks to respond because there is a backlog. But provide general information. You want to tell them what kind of work you're going to be doing, what is going to be included in your contract, what type of materials are you going to be doing, that type of information, and then he can let you know what the appropriate classification would be. But first, start with the description of classification real quick.
Yeah, and you can find that online. You can go to our website. The search bar is a great feature if you have problems finding anything. Just go to the search bar on the homepage. In that case, you just type in classifications. There is a booklet, like Anna mentioned. You also have a page that will pop up with links, and you just click on to say, oh, I want a C10 electrical. You just click on C10 and it describes the things that an electrical contractor can do. So just go to the website, search for classifications, you'll find that. Next question has to do with live scan. We've talked a little bit about that, about the because what happens is that the background checks are done by the FBI and by the Department of Justice, so it's out of our hands. But the question here has to do is if we have a sense on what the approximate time frame is for a live scan. And I don't. I'm putting this one on your shoulders.
Okay, so it varies for everyone. Some come back quickly, some take much longer. It just depends. You can see our processing times on our website right now. If you go to the CSLB website and into the search engine type processing times, you'll be able to see what date we're working on. It depends. It depends on each individual's background. Sometimes they come back fairly quickly. Sometimes they can take a couple of months.
And I know some things that might play a part is if maybe you had an arrest in a different state or something maybe younger in life. Sometimes those just raise a question for them, and it takes time for them to research it just to figure out what it is and to clear it. So there's just some things that come into play there. But I think we mentioned it in the presentation. Only maybe 1% of the applicants who have some kind of a criminal problem in the past that keeps them from getting their license. Most people, things like drunk driving, some of the other things are not going to keep you from getting your license. Okay, how long does it take to get a test date after submitting the application on average? Well, the process, once you submit the application, assuming everything is correct and checks out, it's going to get posted. That's when you start to get the information and are able to schedule that date. With the backlog right now, I believe I think we're still scheduling some things in late August and into September. But as I mentioned earlier, is keep in mind too, is if you do get a test date and you're saying, God, I don't want to wait till then, take a chance if you've got some time. Get ready to go to one of the test centers. On any given day, between 10 and 20% of the people don't show up for the test. So if there's an open seat and you show up, there's a good chance we're going to be able to sit you right there. Granted, you're going to have to make the sacrifice of getting to a test center and the time it's going to take to do that. But if you really are anxious to try to get it earlier than your test date, you can do that. You also, we do have an exams at cslb.ca.gov website, email address. So if you do want to have questions or if you do need to reschedule an exam for whatever reason, send that email off to them, exams, and we'll put this up at the end, exams at cslb.ca.gov. Next question. I think we hit that one. It came through twice. Okay, next. Can you give me an example of owner-builder experience documentation for a B-class license?
Mm-hmm. So we kind of talked about we have a document named Summary of Acceptable Documentation to Verify Work Experience, and there was a link in our presentation. So you can access this on our website, and it gives you a list of acceptable documentation that you can use to prove your work experience if you are an owner B general builder trying to get experience for working on your own project. Mainly what we're looking for is permits, inspections. You want to make sure you include your permit number on the form and be very specific on the work that you did at your project.
Okay, next question. I'm applying for a general B license. I have 4 years of experience over the last 10 years, but there are gaps because most of my experience is related to the C6, which I believe is the framing category. Is that a problem?
So as long as you can prove that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years for the B classification, you would be able to apply for that one there. But it has to be 4 years of verifiable experience within the last 10. And the way you verify that is, let's say you have 2 different people that can serve as your certifier. What you want to do is make a copy of the work certificate form. Maybe one person can only certify 2 years, and that's fine. They can complete the information for those 2 years and then have an additional certifier complete for the other 2 years. in totality, it should be 48 months is what we're looking for.
Okay, next question is, and actually this is, maybe we'll end up adding this to a future presentation because I don't think we covered this at all today. Anna, can you talk a little about DBA, doing business as? Question is, are we able to use DBAs once the license is issued? Okay, if you can just go through, if you want to have a DBA, what that means and how that would work.
A DBA is doing business as. Yes, you are able to use a DBA. So you're going to want to go ahead and include that information. On the application itself, it asks you for the name of your the business name that you want to use. But in addition, after the license is issued, you can add a doing business as. Not a problem.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, you're John Smith Enterprises. You've got a corporation and you want to have it, doing business as JS Construction or something like that. And that's the name you're going to advertise your business as. You can do it. So yeah, you've got that company name, but then you have how you're doing business. But then all of your advertising needs to use that DBA. It needs to use JS Construction. Your license number and all those requirements that are there as well. But that's how that would work.
And the same rules apply. You don't want to be misleading. It has to be compatible with your entity, and it also has to be compatible with the classification that you're working for.
That's a good point. What is required for experience for the C61 D21 machinery and pumps? This might have been the same person. They mentioned it being licensed. Okay, you know what?
Okay, so the experience is the same. The experience requirements are the same for all licenses. 4 years of experience within the last 10 years in the classification that you are applying for.
The next one said that most of LA lost their internet for about 10 minutes and they didn't hear us say. Okay, this is a good time to mention that this is all being recorded. So after we're done, you can go back to our YouTube channel and watch this again. It's also going to be on Facebook. It'll be archived. Everything in all our wonderful glory here will be there. And actually, this I think is the 4th one we've done. All the previous 3 are online as well. So if you want to binge watch Anna and me, you feel free to do that. So sorry that the internet was out. I'm glad you guys are back. But anything you missed, go back and watch it again. Okay, next question. If my previous employer or supervisor is deceased, who can vouch for my work experience?
So your certifier doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you worked for. Sometimes, very often, applicants do not want to ask their employer to sign their work experience because sometimes they're hesitant to fill out the form. So that's okay. It can be anybody who knows that you have journeyman level experience, somebody who can certify it. And there are different, if you look at the work certificate itself, there are different classifications. It could be a fellow coworker. If you're part of a union, it could be a union representative, somebody from the union. It can be a material supplier, a business partner. So there are different categories. If you look at that certification form, right at the bottom, you'll see that there are different categories. And so anybody can fill it. It doesn't have to be your boss or the person that you work for to fill out your certificate.
Okay, next question has to do with education again, talking about advanced degrees. Can an advanced degree, i.e. Juris Doctorate, earn any credit towards the experience requirement because coursework includes general tort and real property law as well as civil procedure?
So we can't tell you exactly how much experience you're going to get without actually reviewing your transcripts. So you're going to want to go ahead and send in your transcripts with your application, and then once it hits a technician's desk, they will review it and let you know exactly how much experience you'll be granted for that education.
Okay, next one has to do with asking us to post a link to the website. I'll read it out to you. The fact that I'll tell you how to do a search too. It's cslb.ca.gov. So Contractor State License Board, CSLB.ca for California.gov for gov. So cslb.ca.gov. Any problems, just go to Google or whatever search feature you use. Just type in Contractors Board, California Contractors Board. We come up at the beginning of all those as well. So you'll be able to find us. Okay, next question is, the class I registered for was an owner. The class I registered for was owner-builder processes. Will that be addressed here? We have talked a little bit about owner-builder. Anna, can you kind of maybe just reiterate some of the ways people can document, especially with building permits, how they can document their experience if they did it as an owner-builder?
So there is a form. We have a form. It's called Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience, and we kind of covered each section and what you need to include in each section. But basically, what we're looking for, we do need that permit number. You're going to want to include that. How many years? It asks questions like how many years, how many months were you working on this project? What are the dates? And so that information is going to be very important that you complete that form thoroughly. If asked for additional documentation, what we're looking for are a copy of permits, other acceptable documentation that we would look at as well, receipt for materials, things of that nature. So you're going to want to go ahead and refer to the form that we were discussing, and also to the acceptable documentation to prove your work experience. There's a column specific for owner builder.
Okay, for our next question, I'm going to throw a curveball at our board chair, David De La Torre. He was with us at the very beginning of the presentation. I see that he stayed online. I'm assuming that he's listening closely to this presentation. The next question I think he actually might be able to help with. So if you are still there, David, if you can either unmute yourself or if you can bring your camera back up. And if not, we'll try to do the best ourselves with it. The question is, I am interested in a career change. I have no professional experience in building or any trades, only DIY, home improvement, and woodworking hobbies. What resources are available to find apprenticeship programs? Well, I'm not seeing David pop on, so maybe he stepped away from the computer. But all of the different unions have apprenticeship programs. Excuse me. So certainly you can do a web search and find something about the labor unions. If you have a certain interest of type of license you want to get, there's the sheet metal workers, there's the plumber and pipe fitters union, there's laborers, which David De La Torre was on. He's in the Laborers Union Local 261. So you can do a search online if you're interested in apprenticeship programs. They're very anxious to get people into the apprenticeship programs. And there's some really outstanding training centers around California. And the building trades, there's a big one. I think it's the largest in the world in Las Vegas. So they have a lot of the workers from California work on their apprenticeships at this huge, it's a beautiful facility in Las Vegas. So I'd say, the best thing is to do some searches, look for the different union opportunities that are out there for you. Okay. Next question. Can you stack your years of experience? For example, full-time Monday through Friday for a contractor and part-time nights on weekends, or is it full-time Monday through Friday for a contractor and nights and weekends on your own projects on your own property? Would that count as 1 year or 1.5 years? So they're saying they worked full-time as it, but they also did part-time on weekends on their own property.
So what we're looking is for 48 different months. So if that was all acquired in one time frame, it looks like you were working longer days, it would only give you the credit for those months. We're looking for 48 different months.
Okay, next question about the C-Class license. Let's say I want to start a pool service and repair business. I'm aware I need a C-53 license as part of doing pool services. Do I need a C-Class plumbing license for doing pool equipment repairs? And I don't think C-53 is the correct one anyway. I think we do have a pool service in our Ds, I do believe, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, yes, that is correct. You want to refer back to the description of classifications and look at the different classifications, see what you can do with the C-53. You may not need the C-53. It may be the specialty classification, and it'll tell you exactly the D-35 is a license. It's pool and spa maintenance. So will want to read that classification there and see if what you're including in your contracts falls under that license there.
Yeah, and for those interested in the C-53 or normal, that's the way you're going to build swimming pools. So if you do have a C-53 license, you also do not need a plumbing license if you're building swimming pools. The C-53 is going to cover that.
We'll cover that. So the D-35 is pool and spa maintenance.
Yeah, so if it's just you're looking just for maintenance, look for that one, which makes it a little easier on you. You only have to take the business and law exam. There's no trade exam for that one, since it is such a limited specialty. Okay, next question. I have applied for the C-15. Can I add the B later on to the C-15? The answer is yes. Yeah, go ahead and get that C-15, get to work, then start the process of getting your B, going through the same system again, documenting and verifying the experience. Then you would just have to take the trade exam. You don't have to take the business and law a second time. You only have to take it once and pass it. Then you would just need to take the trade exam to get that license added. Mm-hmm.
So you can add as many classifications to your licenses as you can prove the experience for. Sometimes, like if you have a corporation, maybe one person can qualify this classification, another person qualifies another. It doesn't have to be one person qualifying all of the classifications. You can have different people qualify different classifications on your license.
That's a really good point. Yeah, some of the businesses, as they grow, you may run into somebody who you're real good friends with or a business relationship with that does something that's completely beyond it, but is interested in teaming up and maybe taking his experience to qualify that, and you can maybe add that to your business. That's a great point. Okay, next question is, what is a good website for study guides? What I would say is go to our website. We do have our study guides, and one of the things we have on there is we do have other resources. There's a whole very detailed process. We update all of our exams by law every 5 to 7 years, and as part of that process, we have people from the industry in. We use the latest code books and all the different resources. Those resources are all listed on those study exams. So the best thing I say is go to our website, go to the search bar, just type in study exams, go to the classification you're looking for, pull that study exam up. It'll have some other resources that you can use. I'd also encourage you to use the California Contractors License Guide and Reference Book. We have it towards the beginning of the presentation. You can download a PDF for free on our website, or if you want a hard copy, it's like an 1,100-page book. Sorry about that. But it's got all the laws and all the different codes. That you can purchase it as well if you'd like a hard copy. I think it's $30 or $40 to purchase that. It's through an outside company, not through CSLB, but you can download it for free on our website. The first 150 pages or so talks about the different things you need to know about running a business, the different requirements. That's a really good place to look as well. Now, just to be fair, there are license preparation schools that are out there. You do not have to go to them, but they are a service. So if you feel like that would be a good investment for you to do, you certainly do have that as an option, but it's not required. A lot of people do come to us and say, I got to go to school before I can get it. There's, as we said at the beginning of the presentation, there's no education requirements. You don't have to go that. If you think it's something that would be a benefit to you, or if you think in some cases they're going to help you do your applications and put that together, if you think that's a good investment, that's a call you make. Hopefully with the workshop and other things that we've got available, you've got enough resources there to be able to do that. But if you think it's something that will help you, certainly that's available. Go online. There's plenty. They're very easy to find. As well, where the schools are. Okay, next question. In a general partnership, LLC, or corporation, would the qualifying individual take the business test as well as the trade test? And is the main qualifier applying for the C36 and the qualifying individual for the C20? Would both persons take both tests?
Okay, so when you apply, you're going to select one classification first. So let's say, for example, in this one, the C36, who you will let us know who the qualifier is. You'll tell us this is a person who has the experience. This is a person who is completing the work certificate experience form, has a certifier that can prove that he has 4 years of experience in the last 10 years for the C36. Once that is issued, if you would like to add the C20, there's a separate form. It's an additional classification application that you're going to want to submit, letting us know that you want to add the C20 classification. You'll let us know who your qualifier for the C20 is. It does not have to be the same person for the C36. However, the first application, when you send in your initial application, you're going to select one classification. That person will take the business and law and the trade exam. When you submit the additional classification, that person no longer has to take the business and law. They would only be coming in to take the trade, the C20 exam.
Okay, next question has to do with, is there any way to take the exams online? They appear to be in New York. Right now, no, there isn't. There's just our test centers. There's actually legislation going through right now that would allow us to contract out the service. And a lot of the services out there do have test centers in other states. Because of the COVID and everything happening, we are looking at the possibility of moving it to an online system, but there's concerns about the security of that. And, part of our challenge is trying to keep those questions from getting out there. The exams, are here to, also I should note, are here to measure minimum competency. You don't have to get an A on the exam to become a licensed contractor. You just have to pass. And each exam has a different pass percentage. So we're looking for minimum competency. So there's concerns about that. And if we can find a way to make that secure, eventually they may move to an online capacity. Just the 8 test centers in California. Okay, next question is, please outline What certification is needed for sales reps? So I'll do a little bit, and then Anna, you can fill in.
Sure.
What we have in California is we have something that's called home improvement salespersons. Now, you as a contractor can go out there and sell your own jobs and sign your own contracts. But if you have salespeople who are going to be going out there and doing that and filling the contracts and meeting with homeowners and going through that, they actually have to be registered. They have to undergo a criminal background check. There are no license exams or anything. They're not licensed. They're just the certified. So they're all called home improvement salespersons. There's all the information on our website about how that process goes. But in order to be able to sign contracts and the like, they do need to be registered with CSLB. Anything to add, Anna?
No, I think you covered it. Just remember that as a contractor, if you are going to have home improvement salesperson registered under your license, you are responsible for the negotiation that home improvement salesperson does with the homeowner. You're responsible. You're supposed to be overseeing the negotiation. So just make sure that you are in fact aware of what they're negotiating.
Yeah, and also say at this point too is home improvement salespeople, the way that works is they get their certification and then it gets applied to your contractor's license. So once this person has their certification, you do have to file paperwork and say that Joe Smith is working as a home improvement salesperson in HIS for us, and you need to tie that to your license. We do find lots of issues where that connection isn't made. So the person is certified, but they're not connected to your license. So you as the contractor need to if you're going to have home improvement salespeople, you need to make sure they're tied to your license. Simple thing to do is you'd be able to go to your license, look up online, down at the bottom of the page where you see personnel listed, you're going to see salespeople listed. Click on there, and if they're not on there, they're not connected to your license. You need to file that paperwork to get that taken care of. Okay, and our next question is asking to cover just a tiny bit more on the exam waiver process, saying that their boss of 7 years is resisting helping them. But the question has to do is, can you cover the exam waiver process?
Waivers there's very specific occasions when we offer a waiver. It's very rare. It's if you have been listed on a different license in the same classification, that license is in good standing, you may qualify for a waiver. I think it's two different questions or two different things you're having issues with. Can you apply for an exam waiver? Regardless if you're applying for an exam waiver or a regular application, you would still have to have a certifier. Somebody's going to have to certify your experience. So it says my boss of 7 years is resisting helping me. It doesn't have to be your boss. It can be somebody who has knowledge that you have journeyman level experience, 4 years in the last 10. That's the person that can be your certifier.
All right, next question is, how do we get the asbestos book for the test? Well, we actually do send it to you, but I believe we've got it up on our website. So just go to our website, hit the search bar, look for asbestos. You'll find the test. It's an open book test. Okay, next question is, how about family? Can they qualify your experience?
If you look at the work experience certificate itself, at the bottom it gives you a list of categories. It can be an employer, a journeyman, a contractor, a fellow employee, a union representative, a foreman or a supervisor, or a business associate. If your family member falls in one of those categories, I would have them check that box, but you want to make sure it's one of the ones that's listed there.
Next question, I'm going to be kind of careful and kind of go beyond it, is make sure that we understand the terms that we're talking about. Contractors in California that we're talking about have to be licensed. I have a next question talks about certifications. Where the only home improvement salespersons get their registrations. So you're going to hear us talking about licensing and registrations. Certifications, many times there's one like in the electrical industry to get certifications which are actually done by the Department of Industrial Relations, a completely separate agency. So be sure that you're real careful when you're using and understand that we license contractors and we register home improvement salespeople. Okay, so here's the question is, they're talking about tree falling and trimming. Would this qualify them for the limited specialty? They said tree trimming certification, but it would be the C61D49, which would our tree limited specialty contract. If so, who should be your certifier? And what would they enter as a certifier's license number since they would not be a contractor?
So it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor that certifies your work experience. As we mentioned, there's several different categories on the certification form itself. So any person who falls within those categories who has knowledge that you have 4 years of journeyman level experience can be your certifier. The first part of the question was, would this qualify you? 4 years of experience. We're looking for 4 years of experience within the last 10 years.
And the other thing also,
if they have a different license, I'm sorry, Rick. If they have a different a license in another state, you can include that in the box where it says the license number. Just let us know it's in a different state. That's not a problem.
And the other thing I'll throw out there, depending on where you are in the state, there's something else if you're in that tree industry or thinking about that you might want to consider is the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE, has something which is called I believe it's a land timber operator. And what they can work in, like, the federal lands, and there's a huge problem right now with dead and dying trees in the forest. A lot of it, obviously, with the wildfires and things like bark beetles and things. There's millions and millions of trees that the state's trying to deal with, figuring out how to remove them. So if you're in one of the areas, there's lots of information online. But look at CAL FIRE's website as well, as they do have the timber operators. That's another way you can actually get. I think that's actually a certification, but it's maybe a much simpler way. If you have any problems and you're in an area where you might be able to utilize that, you may want to look at CAL FIRE and find out more about that as well. Okay, next question. If requested by CSLB, do I need to supply all of the work documentation for certification, or can you choose from the selected options?
No, on the form itself, on the document that we were showing, it's basically just giving you options. The first one I think is W-2s. If you have W-2s from for the last 4 years and you're willing to send those into CSLB to prove your documentation, that may be enough. The other options are just in case maybe you only have 2 years worth of tax documents, and so then you want to use something else to prove the 4 years in its entirety. Just giving you options. You don't have to send every single one that's highlighted there.
Okay. Next question. Earlier we talked. Somebody asked about their law degree. Here's one asking about master's degree. Does that have any impact if you have an advanced degree? Or again, is just because the focus on what that degree is in? If it has to do specifically with construction or possibly business, you might get some out of that. Right.
Correct.
Okay. What if you don't have anybody to be your certifier? We've talked about that some too. There's lots of different ways, whether it be building permits or in some cases even receipts that show the purchase of materials. And is there any other things that jump out that they might look at if they can't get a certifier?
Somebody has to certify you. We need to be able to confirm with someone that you have journeyman level experience. Again, it doesn't have to be your boss or somebody that you've worked with. It could be a fellow employee, but somebody has to be willing to fill out that certification.
Okay, next one. As an owner builder, can they use it as experience if the permit's still open?
I believe it's asking for the date that the project was finalized. It has to be completed. It's asking for a completion date.
I think the big point there is we have somebody needs to inspect it and make sure you actually did it. Just the fact that you tried to do it doesn't not to get a license to do it. Yeah. Next question. What is if there is an existing corporation, can I link my license to that business? Well, in this case, I'm not sure I'm assuming that corporation is maybe not a contractor, but can you link it to that? I would think the answer would be yes. If you apply with that name and all the corporate officers and everybody is on that, you can then add a license. So maybe if you're
in fact, you have to register your corporation first. So it has to be an existing corporation. So go to the Secretary of State, register your corporation, then include your corporation number on your application.
Okay, next question about I need to get an accommodation for the test because they have a learning disability. Is there a process to do that?
So we did mention that in our presentation. Yes, you want to let us know ahead of time that you will need an accommodation, and we will be happy to accommodate you.
Yeah, our test center folks are really good about working with you. And we have, obviously when we're giving out thousands of exams every month, situations do come up. So they're really good about working with you and making accommodations to help you. Our goal here is to, if you can qualify, to give you every opportunity to present your qualifications, to pass your test. We want you to get licensed. Our goal here is not to keep you from getting licensed. If you've got the qualifications, we want you to have your license and be out there working. Next question. Oh,
I'm sorry, Rick. Just real quick. We also mentioned question number 16 on the application asks if you would like to use a translator. If you are somebody who thinks you would benefit from using a reader, you can mark that box and we can provide you with a reader. It doesn't have to necessarily be for a different language. If you think somebody reading the screen to you would help you, absolutely check that box.
Okay, next question. So if I'm the only person working and planning on getting a contractor's license, I need to register a name with the Secretary of State first before applying. Is it the name or need to apply a business license specific city? Okay, so again, sole ownership. If you're going to be a sole ownership company, that's the entity that you choose, you do not need to be registered with the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State's does the work if you're going to be a corporation or a limited liability company. So if you're going to be one of those two, go to them first, get registered, get everything taken care of. If you're going to be a sole ownership, you do not need to go to the Secretary of State's first. As far as the business license, you definitely, and sometimes I get a little cloudy on this. Definitely you're going to need to have a business license in the city of record. In some situations, you may actually have to get business licenses if you're working doing a lot of work in a different city. Some cities require you to actually have a business license because you're doing work in their city. So you're going to want to check, and that can be a little overburdening. So you might want to check with the cities themselves. Let's say, for example, here in the Sacramento area, if you live, let's say, in the city called Folsom, which is a completely different city outside of Sacramento, but you do a lot of your work in Sacramento, you may want to check with the city of Sacramento and explain that to them, find out if you need to get a city of Sacramento business license. So you definitely want to have one for the city where your business is located, your address of record. But you want to check with some of the cities. If you're going to be doing a lot of work in cities, you want to check to make sure that if they require it, that you get that business license for them as well. Okay, next question is, why does the LLC have to get a $100,000 bond?
That's the law in California. That's not a CSLB law. That's just the law in California. LLC has to have that.
The LLCs have only been around, I think, 5 or 6 years. So there was a push to do that, and when the qualifications and the requirements were put in place, that's what was put in place. The rest of the contractors, $15,000 surety bond. LLCs have to have that, but then have this $100,000 bond as well. This has to do with the way that the business is set up. Okay, can you add additional personnel to a sole proprietor license? I'll say that's like the sole ownership license. You can, but the only one you need is if you're going to have a different qualifier. That would be that responsible managing employee. And is there any other situations on a sole ownership where you would need anybody besides an RME on that?
So just because you have a sole ownership license doesn't mean that you can't have employees. You can absolutely have employees. You're the only one listed on the license. So you are responsible for your license, but you can have employees. You'll let us know, you'll have a workers' comp policy, and that's fine. You can have employees. The only reason that you would have to have somebody listed on your license is if you were going to have a responsible managing employee, an RME, and you wanted to include that person on your license. That's a possibility as well. That's if you didn't have, let's say you didn't have the 4 years of experience, and so you needed somebody to qualify your license. If you found somebody who was willing to work for you, that employee has 4 years of experience, that person could be your RME, your responsible managing employee.
Okay, next question talks about pressure washing. They are the one actually doing the work. Would they be considered the qualifier? Yeah, if you've got the experience and you meet the qualifications or ready to sit down and take those exams, absolutely you could be the qualifier. If you don't and aren't able to meet it, you may look to try to get an RME, a responsible managing employee, to qualify the license. But if you've got the experience to do it, go for it. That's you. Okay, 4 years of experience in the last 10 years is equivalent to about how many hours?
So we don't go by hours. What we're looking for is 48 different months. So as long as you have 48 different months, we don't want overlapping time. So if it's 48 different months within the last 10 years, we would look at that experience.
And if you can just touch on too, what happens if they do that in a part-time basis? If they've done 2 years as a part-time, how is that taken into account?
Sure. So if you were working part-time, we would give you 50% of the credit. So let's say you only have 2 years of experience at a part-time level. We would give you 1 year of experience for that. So you would need to have an additional 3 years of experience within the last 10 years, because what we're looking for is 48 months.
Cool. I see we've got about just under a half hour left, and it looks like you guys are still sending stuff in, so we're going to try to pick up our speed a little bit, so I'll try to go a little quicker here. Can a business administration finance degree qualify for educational experience? Probably some. It's something we can't say without learning a little bit more. So we'll give you an email address at the end, but you definitely want to talk to us before you move forward with that. Where can I find the list of all the C61 subcategories? Go to our website, cslb.ca.gov. Click, just go to the search term, type in classifications. You'll go to that page and you'll scroll down. You see the A, the B, all the different C's. Go all the way down to C61. Click on that. That'll show all of the D categories. So that's how you find that. Okay, next one. How do you calculate 4 years? If there was a project I supervised that lasted 9 months, do I have to show another project that covers the 3 months to equal 1 year? Yeah, you sure
Yes.
would.
And you can have one person certify the 9 months, another person certify the 3 years, somebody else certify the additional 3 years. Make as many copies of that certification form as you need.
Okay, I worked on my family's property. May I use that as experience?
Only if you own the property. It's if you own the property, then yes.
Okay, so if they're maybe a son.
And they're applying for the B license. That's only for the B licensing.
Okay, if I hold a B license, am I required to have a C specialty license? You know you aren't, but here's the caveat. The B license requires you to be take a job that actually has 2 trades besides the framing. So let's say if you've got a B license and somebody calls you out to do an electrical job, you can't do just an electrical job with a B license. It's got to be a bigger project that includes electrical, then you can. If you're going to be legally to take on that electrical job, you have to have a C10 electrical license, and you would do it under that classification. So the whole concept behind the general contractor is they are general contractors. They do the construction jobs that include framing. There is legislation, and keep an eye on it, about us creating a new license category where if it goes through, and there is good support right now, we'll be creating a sub B category for home improvement projects that don't include framing. So that's something that we've worked at for a long time to try to get into place. We're having a lot of success with and support in the legislature right now. So that's something we're very excited about, and we think it's going to be great for the industry. Hopefully we're going to be able to get that up and running within the next couple of years if it does pass and is signed by the governor. But we're very hopeful that's going to happen. I think that's going to be great for the industry. Okay, next one is, does only permitted work on home projects qualify for experience?
Yes, you have to have a permit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next one, a federal employment, how about federal employment uses qualifying work experience? For example, I worked as a forestry technician for 15 years with numerous certifications in tree falling and trimming. Would this qualify for the D tree contractor limited specialty?
If you have somebody who is willing to fill out your certification and list exactly what the duties were that you were performing at during that time, we would definitely take a look at that.
Great. So I'm planning on taking my General B, and I'm currently working with a framing crew, but considering on changing paths and working with an electrician soon. Do you need to work with the framing crew in order to sit for the General B license?
So as long as you have some framing experience within the last 10 years, you can include that on your application. So now, let's say now you're going to go work for an electrician, not a problem. We're looking for 4 years within the last 10.
Okay. To confirm, we need to create a business name corporation before applying with CSLB. Yep, you got it. Go to Secretary of State's first for corporations or LLCs. Otherwise, sole ownership should come straight to us. Hi, I've got a twisted path into the trades. I was a designer and a physics simulation professional in visual effects, and have leveraged a lot of my CAD skills to prepare early renders for clients, and also project management administration, some large construction projects for clients. Ultimately, my goal is to design and build small homes. I don't separated. I'm sorry, Cedric, I'm not seeing a question there. But if it goes to, is the experience going to work? It's hard to say, but because if you think about it, what does a B contractor do? Certainly design can be part of it. There's also, engineers that are licensed or architects that are licensed that are involved in that as well. If you can show to us that the kind of experience and development is something that a contractor would be doing or expected to know, there's a chance that can be used for it. So I'm not sure I can kind of go beyond that. And feel free, as we move down the list, if you have another, you can add more and we'll come back to it. Okay, who would be my certifier, and do I enter a certifier's license number? Okay, so in case if they're not a contractor in California, you certainly could enter that information, anything that would be helpful. If they are a California contractor, you absolutely want to have their contractor's license number in there. Okay, next one talks about the master's degree with architecture. Can that be used towards some? If so, how much? Can't say how much. It's possible, again, to the previous one I mentioned, how much of that is the kind of work that a general contractor would do. If there's some real close connection to that, then there's a chance that it can. Get in touch with us. We'll have the email addresses again if you want to send an email, but definitely talk to us before you send it in. Seeking an A license for doing work designing, manufacturing, installing, and commissioning systems for gas turbines, generator controls, and other utilities. Would a C license like a C10, which is electrical, be required? And I think in most of these things, if we've got a specific classification, let's say for these turbines and generators, the work that's done in connection with that, you wouldn't need to have a separate license. If it involves, like, let's say, for example, in the solar industry, if you've got a solar license, obviously you're doing some connections of electrical. You don't also have to have a C10 electrical license. The law says that if it's related to that solar project, then that you're expected to get your license, you're expected to be able to do everything necessary to get that installation done. So in this case, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd say if that's the kinds of things that are required to get that classification, you don't have to get an additional classification because it also includes that.
Correct. It's considered incidental to that classification.
Thank you. A long answer. You answered it in one word. It was incidental. Okay. So, what is the pass rate and percentage for first-time takers in the law and business exam? I'm trying to go from memory here. It's not when I get off, and I haven't checked with our testing folks. I got to say it's probably in the 50 to 60% range, probably. You know, it's one of the things about, it's a great industry. God bless a lot of you that are great with your hands. The testing and things can be a little bit more of a challenge. There's kind of no way around that. But again, just remember, it's minimum competency that we're testing for.
And you can take it, don't give up. You can take it as many times as you need to in the 18-month period. As long as you're paying that $60 rescheduling fee, you can keep on coming back. And not necessarily because you come back and, and take your exam, are you going to have the same questions? We are constantly changing our questions, but keep on coming back. Keep on trying. Don't give up. We encourage you to keep on coming back.
I'd also say, too, in the business and law exam, it's kind of important to know that stuff. So, to take it as a not just a challenge to try to pass the test, but also know that this is stuff you're going to actually be able to put to work for you to run a successful business. So if you kind of maybe keep that attitude in mind too, and know that this is really going to benefit you as you study and you try to get yourself up to speed. Again, look at our law book. That first 150 pages goes into a lot of the business and law exam topics that you're going to. So our website, again, and just search for Licensed Law Book. There's a link towards the first few slides of our presentation. Take a look at that. That'll help you a lot as well. Okay, another question about certify the employee if you're not a contractor. Yeah, that's fine as long as they know the work that you did. Is there a specialty license to install water heaters only in residential homes, or would that be the C36 plumbing license?
A C36 can do it. I don't know that we have a specific one just for water heaters.
I don't know. I don't think there is one for water heaters. The other closest one that we get a lot of is like HVAC, which is heater and air conditioning. So a lot of times those people will have the plumbing too, but I think C36 is the right one for that. You reach out to your prior employers if they are the qualifiers for. I'll try this again. Do you reach out to the prior employer that is the qualifier for experience? Oh, the certifier, probably the certifier for experience. Like looking for a new job, this can be difficult to make happen without raising issues with your current employer. Anna talked a little about this. Anna, go ahead again.
We see that very often. Our applicants are hesitant to ask their current boss to be their certifier because they don't. The boss, oftentimes, like we heard from somebody here, that their boss is not cooperating. They don't want you out there as their competition. So that is very common. Your boss does not need to be your certifier. You can select a different certifier, somebody who is willing to work with CSLP, who is willing to verify your work experience.
Holy cow, people. It's great you're sending so many questions, but boy, we got 15 minutes. I don't know that we're going to get through everything, but we're going to keep going. So fortunately, I think we're just finding themes, and a lot of things are asking the same kinds of things. So if you've got specifics, we'll give you an email address at the end if we're not answering it, and feel free to get a hold of us. Next is a home improvement salesperson license. Actually, it's not a license. It's just a registration required for a salesperson who only sells commercial. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if they're selling, it's what they're doing. If they're selling and getting people to sign contracts, they need to be registered. Do I have to register a business name before I send the application? Register
No.
if it's a corporation and getting that, yes, you have to get that in place. But your business name, you don't. That's
and again, that's not a CSLB requirement. Registering your name, that would be if you're a sole owner, that would be your local building official. So you want to check with your local, with the city or the county to see if they require that you do that.
Again, what circumstances can the test be waived? And we're only talking, the only test that conceivably could be waived is the trade exam. The business and law test cannot be waived.
If you were on a license that is current and active, and you've been on that license, and that license is active, you could qualify for a waiver, perhaps.
Okay, next one. If I hire a general contractor and have him running my construction for projects, may I use the time he's employed by me as my experience? So it sounds like he used the qualifier. He got this guy to qualify his license. After some time, can he then become the qualifier himself?
So yes, oftentimes we see that, let's say you only have 2 years of experience, you don't have the full 4, you can have somebody qualify your license, and let's say you make an agreement with them, you're going to be my qualifier for 2 years. After 2 years, I'm going to remove you as a qualifier, and then I want to be my own qualifier for my license. You can absolutely do that. Once you remove a qualifier, you have 90 days to replace them. You will have to take the trade examination, the exam. If they took the exam, now you will have to pass them.
Okay, next question is in 2 parts. I'll handle the first part first. You said something about an exemption if you don't have employees. When you get your license, you got to do 1 or 2 things. If you have employees, you got to get us their workers' comp insurance information. If you don't have employees, you have to file with us an exemption saying you have no employees and therefore you're exempt from having to carry workers' comp insurance. When we go out and we do things with the media and consumer education, we tell them to look for workers' comp. And don't go do things like, let's say that I've got 6 office workers and you have people out there climbing trees or up on roofs. That's against the law. That's not only, it's a misdemeanor not to have workers' comp if you've got workers. If you actually have a fraudulent account, that's felonies, and you're looking at prison time for that. So don't do that. So that's the 2 things. You got employees, we got to get their workers' comp information. You don't have employees, you got to file an exemption. And down the road, if you do get employees and then have to get a policy, you don't have to wait till you renew your license. Get us the forms and get us that information. Work with your broker or your insurance carrier, and they can file that online. Okay, now the second part of this is if they don't have employees, can it waive, they want to be an LLC with no employees, will that waive the $100,000 bond requirement?
No, it's very different. Workers' comp is different from the surety bond. Workers' comp is if you have employees or not. If you don't have to have it. You go ahead and send us the exemption. Surety bond is a requirement of the LLC.
Okay, can handyman experience count towards your license? Yeah. We want you to get licensed. If you're out there doing the work, even if you're doing it as unlicensed, if you're breaking the law, I don't want to say we don't care, but we don't care. We want you, if you got that experience, you can qualify to get your license, come get your license. We'll do what we can to help you qualify that. So that kind of work, save your receipts, save your, the permits, save stuff that can show that you're doing it. A lot of times people will hire the unlicensed contractors and try to keep things under the table and hush hush. If you want to be legitimate and get your license, save that stuff, to take control of your own destiny and start compiling that information to get your experience.
Yep. Contracts, invoices, checks, whatever, start compiling it.
I've taken an intro to business class. Can it be used towards the work experience? I'll just say maybe, but probably not a lot. If it's just an intro to business class, that you're probably not going to get much out of that. Next, can an owner act as a general contractor on his own? In this case, it said condo. Yeah, you don't have to have a license if you're an owner builder working on your own property. If you're doing something like that, you don't. There are some cases where laws eventually will kick in if you're doing multiple properties in a certain amount of time. They may say, well, that's going beyond just doing your own stuff and you're actually doing business stuff, even if they're investment properties. So take a look at the website, do the search, talk to an attorney if you really are concerned about that. For the most part, you do not need to have a license to work on your own property.
Right.
Okay, applying for license and sole ownership. You don't have a registered name. Do you need to No. Okay, we've dealt with that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Corporations, LLCs. Okay, work experience. I'm having trouble getting my former employer to fill out their portion of the form. Another way to verify. Maybe show pay stubs from a previous employer.
No, somebody has to be willing to fill out the certification that starts the process. It may be that you are selected and we ask you for additional documentation, in which case your pay stubs would be helpful. But in order to submit your application, you're going to want to have somebody sign the certification. And we talked about who that can be.
Great. Next one talked about study courses for the B. You go to our website, type in study exams. We go to get a bunch of information. 4 years experience under a general contractor like a handyman, but I was taking care of the electrical. Would that count on my application? I'd say if you're applying for electrical, there's a good chance. If that's all you're doing, that's what your experience is in. So yeah, it wouldn't count for a B, but it may count for a C10, which is electrical. Okay, you're working on a house that has multiple projects during different times of the year that are under $500 in labor and materials. Is that okay? For example, some yard work and some painting and some shelf installation. Okay, I'll say what I said at the very beginning. This is not legal advice. I'm not presenting legal advice. Anna's not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Those legal interpretations, I can only tell you what our best knowledge is of what the law is. The law says that you can't do a job that's more than $500 in labor and materials. The law doesn't say you can't do a job that's broken up over a 12-month period. It doesn't say if you can break, the law interprets, in the case law is interpreted that you can, if you take a bunch of pieces in a short order that were then combined. It was, I think the example I used is installing ceiling fans. If you do 10 ceiling fans, you can't break it down into a contract of 4 fans, 3 fans, and 3 fans to get around it. It's the total job. So if you're prepared to go argue that in front of a judge that's not one job, then good luck to you. You can. We're not lawyers. So long answer to a short question is, over a long period of time, yeah, chances are that's probably different contracts. And so maybe those are okay. If they call you up and say, okay, I need you to install, 1 ceiling fan. They call you up 2 months later, I need you to do this one little painting job. Yeah, you could probably make a good argument that those are separate and would fall under the handyman exemption. You'll take a chance, though. You may get invited to a sting, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, are both tests required for tree service? No, the tree service is the C61 D49, so that's a limited trade, so you only have to take the business law exam. You do not have to take a trade exam for that one. The other one that a lot of times people will use is we do have a C27, which is our landscape contractors. So if you're just doing tree stuff, yeah, that limited specialty limits you to just trees. If you are going to be doing installations, whether it be retaining walls, sprinkler systems, sod, all the things that a landscape contractor would do, you would need to have that landscape contractor license. Landscape contract license, which is the C27. Okay. After a few months or years obtaining a contractor C license, if I hire employees, what do I need to do? Have them listed under my license? No, you don't need to list all your employees with us. You need to make sure they're covered with insurance. You or whoever you have as your qualifier and you on that license. Those people, that doesn't change just because you had employees. God bless you that your business is growing, you're able to bring on employees. Make sure they're covered in insurance. We don't have to know who they are unless they're actually going to be a qualifier or an officer, somebody important on the license, not just employees. After a few months obtaining my contractors, oh, sorry, I just read the same question again. I've done projects at my brother's house. Can that count towards owner builders? I managed from getting the permit to the end of the construction. Anna.
No, it would have to be on your own project.
For a corporation, all the officers are required to have, it says live fingerprint, the live scan. The RMO is required, but how about the other officers, corporation officers? Yes, you are required to. It's on it's very early on in the presentation we talked about that. So go back and look at that information if you need to again. Okay, I'm going to skip over a couple for these because they're going into that owner builder experience again. I've registered an S Corp. I'm the only owner, have 100% shares. Is it okay to apply with my corporate for a B general contractor? Again, Anna and I are not attorneys, but a corporate. I can't get into corporate law, but we have corporate licenses. So I think you're going to be okay, but definitely check. That's a little bit too specific for Anna and my knowledge. Okay, I have no formal work experience. The only experience I have has been from the work I've done in my own personal residence. I was in the military and have a 4-year degree, but nothing relating to construction work. Okay, well, I'll just mention that sometimes some of your military experience may count. You may want to check that. We do have we had links in the presentation to our assistance program. If you think any of that, if you think it wasn't, well, then it's probably not going to help you. If your 4-year degree doesn't have any connections to construction, chances are it's probably not going to help you at all. You may want to go down the route of, Anna talked about it, and we've talked about it a few times, maybe looking to have a qualifier help you qualify that license. And then as you build up that experience, you may be able to take it over yourself. Anything else, Anna?
No, that's about
Okay.
right.
I'm looking to get a C55. Is there any advice you can give me on receiving this license? Boy, I'm not even sure I know what a C55 is. I'd have to pull up the list. It's not one I deal with a lot. But the basic point is, though, is the qualifications and everything you do to get your license is the same regardless of which classification it is. You got to have the 4 years of experience out of the last 10 years. You got to pass the 2 exams. This is a C, so it's a specialty. So you have to do both the business and trades and that specific trade. I'd go ahead and pull up the study guide for that. Take a look at that. I'm sorry, my computers are all tied up with this.
Water conditioning.
Oh, water conditioning. Okay.
Water conditioning.
My guess is it might be a good time to get into that business. There's probably not a lot of water conditioner contractors. If that's a good one for you, I would say, talk to people that are maybe already in the industry. Hopefully, as part of your experience, you've worked for a contractor who's done that. Maybe they'd be willing to kind of assist you, make sure you're ready to go. Our goal is we want you to be a successful businessman or businesswoman. We want consumers to be protected and not get ripped off. So if you can do that, we'll do what we can to help you to qualify that license. Can the business name be just your name without a construction description at all? Example, the first and last name construction. Yeah, that's fine. If you've got a B license and it's construction, you can do it that way. I think I've even seen some that don't even have the word construction, it just has their name.
Their name.
Yeah. Okay, I turned in my application work experience. May I add additional information to an already turned in application?
So your application, once we receive your application, it's assigned to a technician. Contact your technician. It depends what type of information you're trying to add. Most of the time they will work with you. Just contact your technician and let them know.
I'm seeing a lot of repetition here. We only got about 5 minutes. Try to give me a second here to try to find something I might not have answered. Okay, if you can pull your list out, Anna, he's asking, she actually is asking about demolition. What type of license for demolition?
Sure.
C1-ish, C12, they run together, but the list is there. You happen to have it there.
Right, and it depends as well, because there's a, it depends exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to want to look at our, we have the description of classification booklet that divides it up for you, and it lets you know exactly what type of work you can do with a demolition license. There is one that is, and then if not, you can also send an email to the classification deputy. Let them know what type of work you're going to be doing. What is it that you're going to be demolishing? What type of materials are you going to be working with? And they can let you know.
Yeah, a lot of times we see those, especially after wildfires. We see demolition contractors involved in that a lot. Okay, we've got time for just a couple more, and I've seen a couple here that we'll do. Okay, my experience is in commercial construction. I'm realizing I'm more drawn to residential construction. Can they switch? Actually, you don't need to. Our B general contractor, it doesn't ask you, it doesn't care if you're doing commercial work or residential work. Some other states actually do have separate licenses, but here in California, it's all the same. So if you're a general contractor, you can do commercial jobs or you can do residential jobs. Okay, I'm applying for a C38 refrigeration license. Is service and repair work included in the $500 limit, or is just the bids and contract work? Also, does it make a difference if the unit is attached to the building or self-contained? I'll break this out and deal with it. And actually, service and repair it's a good question. We really didn't talk about that at all. There's a couple different types of things contractors can do. The vast majority of what happens and the vast majority of problems we have in consumer complaints that are filed are in home improvement. These are people, they hire to do improvements to the property and something wasn't done, not up to standards, some issues with front loading a contract and getting too much money and abandoning a job. The home improvement laws, that has one specific type of contract. Now, a whole different part of the industry is what's called service and repair. That's your air conditioner goes out, you call an air conditioning company to come out, you get a leaky pipe. There's some kind of a situation where you call, those are service and repair. Those are limited to $750. So the rules are different. In a home improvement contract as a down payment, you can ask for no more than $1,000 or 10% of the contract price, whichever is less, as your down payment. And then as the contract moves through the process, you cannot ask for money before that part of the work has been done or before materials have been delivered to the properties. You can't get paid in advance for work or materials after that down payment. Service and repair is different. The limit on a service and repair contract is $750. You cannot take any money at all as a down payment. Now, if somebody calls you out, let's say that you have the C20 HVAC, they call you out, their air conditioner is not working, and you find out what the problem is, you diagnose the problem, you're able to fix that for less than $750. But you talk to the homeowner and you say, well, yeah, but ideally really the system's 25 years old, you really should look at getting a new system. That part of it, if they decide to do that, that ceases to become a service and repair project and now becomes a home improvement project. Big thing about that is with home improvement projects, you have a right to cancel. I believe it's a 3-day right to cancel. So a whole different set of rules come into play. So if one of the things you're interested in doing is one of the industries like electrical or plumbing or HVAC that uses 2 different kinds of contracts, you obviously want to be sure you understand the differences and when you could use those. No, that's not really the issue you brought up, but I think it's important to know that there are different kinds of contracts. Again, the vast majority of problems we see are in the home improvement, so a lot of our focus is on that since there's so many more contractors. But if you are going to be in an industry that does have service and repair, make sure you know how the different contracts need to be used. We've got all that information on our website, the different guides on how to put the contracts together. Phew. Anna, anything else to add? We need to.
No, I think you covered it.
Well, thank you to everybody. I think we ended up with about 250 people plus online with us. We hope we've answered as much as we could. We do want to take you through a couple of email addresses here. And thank you for all that. We encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division if you do have licensing questions. And there you can see the address is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Be sure to include your phone number, other relevant information such as your license number, your app fee number, any other information that's going to help our staff provide you with a thorough answer. You also can call our Licensing Information Center. It's Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We actually have people answering phones once you get through our automated system. The vast majority of stuff you can get through the automated system, but sometimes you do need to talk to somebody and there's options to be able to transfer. That's Monday from 8 to 5. And that number is 800-321-CSLB. It's all over the website if you need to, you don't get it from there. Also, as far as the rescheduling your exams, when you do get to that point where you've got your exams, here's the email, or if you have questions about the exam process, fire off an email to our licensing exam people. That's exams@cslb.ca.gov. Be sure to include your name and app number if you do have that when you do respond to us. Anna, I'll let you wrap.
Okay, so that concludes today's workshop. An archived version of this was going to be placed on our CSLB YouTube channel so that you can watch it later if you need to. We welcome your comments for future webcasts or any comments or any topics that you'd like to see in the future. Let us know. Just drop us an email. You can see our website there, social@cslb.ca.gov, and let us know. Also, please look forward to a really quick 3-question survey that we're going to be sending you.
All righty. Special thanks goes to our CSLB licensing division staff as well as our board members. David Delatorre, thank you for joining us as well, and all the other staff that helped us on the workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractor State License Board. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.